No.
Hey everyone, thank you so much again for joining us today for another one of our streaming safaris. First off, again, we always want to say thank you. Without the donations that you guys have been supporting us, we wouldn't be able to do this, so we really, really appreciate it. We are still asking for donations. Remember, it takes between $20 to $30 per lion per day just to feed them. So anything that you're able to give right now is a huge, huge help for us. Even just a few dollars that you normally would be spending on those cups of coffee really do make a difference overall. We've been having some really great fans, and you guys have been helping us to go and spread the word. So during the middle of this, feel free to share, and that way we're able to go and reach a wider audience. We always love to go and spread our message as far as possible. Today, as you can see behind us, we're working with Ozzy in the middle of one of his painting sessions. So because we've had a lot of people asking about it, we're going to go and talk about the actual training that goes on to get something like this so accurate. So I'm going to go and lead it off with Denise, who's usually the one behind the camera. We brought her out today, guys, and she's going to go and talk a little bit about training.
So, do you guys know what is training? Come on, shout it out. You have any guesses? Any? So basically, training is teaching an animal or a person just a specific task or even a skill to be able to do something different. And then one way we can do that is through operant conditioning. It's a big scary word, I know. But basically, operant conditioning, all that is just based on the consequences of an action, you can increase or decrease the frequency of your behavior. Kids, do you guys have chores you do at home? Do you get an allowance? Do you get a reward? Maybe some cookies, maybe a brownie? Well, that's an idea of operant conditioning. So the more you get rewarded for that, the more likely you are to do your chores at home. So one of the things we like to do here is called, another big scary word here, but I'll break it down for you guys, is positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is just positive means adding something to the environment, and then reinforcement is just increasing the behavior. So you can see back here, Ozzy is receiving a treat. We got a variety of things he's getting right now. He's got some lettuce, he's got some apple and oats biscuits, he's got some broccoli, cauliflower, and he gets that, and he's more likely to paint. I don't know about you guys, but I usually like to be rewarded for doing good things, so.
And it's just like you guys at school. You do really well on a paper, you get that A at the top, and it makes you feel good, so you want to go and keep doing the work. And the way you learn at school is exactly the way our giraffe here learns, or any of our animals when it comes. It's small step-by-steps. So it's just like with math, guys. You can't add or subtract unless you know how to count. And so it's those little steps that add up to one big final process. Now, how do we go and communicate when it comes to the trainers? Well, when it comes to the animals, we have a variety of things. You might hear some things during this training session. He's using a clicker. Now, I'm not going to go and click right now, but this is what it looks like. I don't want to go and confuse Ozzy, but that's the sound that he's listening for. Another one you might be familiar with is a bridge whistle. That's just another way we can say it. But there's one that you hear all the time, and it's simply, good job. We're able to go and use a verbal cue just like that, and you hear it at school, you hear it from your parents. And so those are actually bridges that you know, as soon as you did that behavior, you know that you did it right, and they're going to be able to go and give you a nice, pat on the back, an A+, or maybe that allowance.
I don't know about you, but I want a cookie.
I always want a cookie. Now, why do we train? Now, Ozzy back here, he looks like he's having a lot of fun, and it's really fun to watch him. But there's actually some really important ways and reasons that we train. Now, here's another big word for you, husbandry. Husbandry means the care of animals. So when it comes to training over here, we're able to go and have Ozzy do some really fun behaviors, but our trainers here are able to go and look at Ozzy and make sure that he's healthy too. He's bringing his head all the way down to them, and that's a sign of respect and trust. Trust building is a major, major part of what we do with our training here, because we want the animals to participate with us. You can see back there, his walk is open. He has his whole wall. You can leave all the way over and go to his barn. If he didn't want to be here, he can leave. He is choosing to stay with the trainers and keep working with them. And this is allowing them to really get a great look at his face as well. We want to be able to check his ears, his eyes, and his mouth to make sure that he's growing up nice and healthy. What are some other ways we'd want to go and train, or some reasons I should say that we want to go and train our animals?
Well, it gives them something to do. Oh, it looks like we have a question.
One of our viewers, Courtney, wants to know, does Ozzy make sounds?
It's actually a really, really great question. Males kind of grunt a little bit and the females hump. We actually didn't even know this until recently, thanks to some very amazing zookeepers who were able to pick up on some of those sounds very, very slightly in the barns at night. However, most of the time it's too low for the human ears to be able to pick up.
However, I will say specifically for Ozzy, some of his favorite ways, because he knows how to get his keeper's attention, he's kind of like a kid in that he will use his environment to make sounds. So some of his favorite ways to do that is to, he'll make noise by hitting the fence. He'll maybe put a shoulder, maybe do a little kick, because that's something loud. We usually try not to acknowledge that because we don't want him to do that a little bit more. Or any other things. He'll play with carabiners, anything that kind of makes a sound, because he's like, you will look at me. I want your attention. I know I can get it. Another question?
So Gabby, she wants to know, does Ozzy have any other animal friends he likes to play with?
So he is a boy giraffe, and boy giraffes usually live by themselves. And that's because boy giraffes actually fight quite a bit. They do something called necking, and that's how they go and they get the girlfriends. They'll go and they'll throw their heads up into each other, and the first one who quits, no girlfriend. So usually the males only come together for mating purposes. So right now, Ozzy doesn't have anybody else, and that's okay. He's a little bit young anyway, so he's still growing up. And then as our facility and permits might change, we'll look into that into the future. But right now, he's our only male giraffe. In fact, he's the only giraffe in the state. All right. Let's go back to training real quick. What are some reasons that are retraining?
So, some other reasons. Do you guys do crossword puzzles and things like that at home? Something to do. So it just gives him something else to do and kind of focus his energy and behavior. So training different behaviors gives him another avenue to be able to use that resource.
Yep. These guys would have to spend most of their days searching for food, finding predators, finding safe places. Ozzy doesn't have to worry about them here. So instead of giving him ways that he could maybe get into trouble, if you guys have any toddlers at home or little brothers and sisters, you know that if you don't go and play with them or watch them, they can get into mischief. A lot of times our animals can do that too. So this is a really great avenue we're able to go and take to get them a chance to go and work, as well as, again, that veterinary care, which is so important. Looks like we have one more question.
What did you guys do to get Ozzy to paint?
So remember we were just talking about those step-by-step processes. They actually have a pretty big word. It's called approximations. So why don't you go and explain what those step-by-steps were that we used with Ozzy?
So the original trainers that trained Ozzy how to paint started with him being able to just to touch a meter stick. I'm going to go over here really quick. And show you his paintbrush. So you can see right here there's a little meter stick with a paintbrush attached and a string. So right here they just taught him to be able to touch the paintbrush. That was their starting point. Baby steps. And then the next step they taught him to hold the paintbrush in his hands. And then the next step was just to take the paintbrush and touch it to the canvas. And then that kind of just continued on from there. So it's just small steps and approximations just to be able to just, hey, this isn't a scary thing, because sometimes they're like, oh, what is that? So you want to make sure that they know that that's an okay thing and that's something that they can do. So started with touching, then holding, and then moving the brush around. And then how are you guys doing on the painting right now? You guys about done?
Just about done. I'll put this back for you.
And then if you guys will post pictures of these paintings that Ozzy did today on the Facebook comment link down below for you guys. If any of you are interested in purchasing any of Ozzy's paintings, that's one way you can go ahead and support us, is by purchasing those paintings. You can go to our website, lionhabitatranch.org, in order to purchase that. Now, you got another question before we go on?
Sharon wants to know, how does Ozzy stay cool during the summer?
Ozzy is actually really well designed for the hot African desert. So giraffes are born out in Africa, so physiologically they're already kind of adapted for it. He was actually born out in Kansas, which doesn't see quite the same heat, but he still has those form and functions. Look at those great big ears that he has, and you'll actually notice a nice big vein that comes up in the top there, and that acts like a fan. The blood goes up really close to the surface, the heat gets pushed out, and the nice cool blood goes back in. Same thing with his neck there. He has some big veins to help cool it off. And one thing we actually just learned a couple of years ago is those spots will actually help on thermal regulation as well. Each one of those spots here actually has a lot of little capillaries, a lot of little blood vessels right near the surface, and they're able to expand and contract and either gain heat or release heat there. So we're still learning a lot about these animals, and that's why the zookeepers here around the world really are doing a lot of great work with helping our understanding of these animals. All right, let's go and move on. Looks like Ozzy's still going to be hanging out here, but his training is done. Now we're going to start training.
So we promised you guys a game and an activity. So what this is called, and I really love this personally, is the training game. You can do this with your animal, but usually it's a lot better to do with people because you have to figure out how to communicate without actually being able to tell them what to do. So for our purposes today, would you rather you guys want to use the bridge or do you guys want to use good? Clicker or good?
Whatever.
Which one would you like?
Okay, well, you're going to be training this time.
So
You can pick a card there.
What
I'm
they're
going to be the animal.
Oh, okay. What they're going to do is they're actually going to, Caroline is going to be the trainer, Kylie is going to be the trainee. You can actually do this with a group of people, even if you have 2 participants, because you can watch and learn together.
Imagine teaching your parents something fun today.
Yeah, and you're only limited by your creativity. We have a little game we actually bought, and we're going to utilize that today, but you're not limited by any means. You could have somebody do jumping jacks. You could do clapping, or even turning on a light switch, touching a doorknob, opening a door. You're just limited by your own creativity. So what you want to do for this game is you want to establish what's your bridge going to be. How am I going to tell my trainee that they're doing a good job? For today's purposes, it looks like we're doing a clicker. You can also, like Kylie said earlier, you can do a good. If you have a whistle, sure, use the whistle. If you want to do a visual instead of an audio, you can use a point. You just want to establish that before you start, because communication when you're training a behavior is super important. So you want to make sure that you're giving the correct communication. So during this process, you're going to watch them, and one important thing you want to look at when you're training a behavior, when you're training baby steps, you want to look at what's the big picture and how can I start that behavior, and then you want to try to bridge or tell them they're doing a good job when they're on to the next step. One problem sometimes you may run into is you maybe told them good too many times for the same thing. Say you wanted them to pick up the cup and then put it on the block. Well, if you tell them good job for picking up the cup too many times, they may just get a little bit of a block and they may not move on to the next step. So you want to try to maybe just tell them doing good job once and try to look for that next step to get to the overall behavior. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys watch Kylie and Caroline play the game.
All right. You might want to come in a little bit closer just so we can see all the items here. You don't need my face in it, I promise. You've seen my face enough this week.
All right, ready?
Okay, ready.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Now you can see Caroline's waiting till she gets that next step that she's waiting for. Yay! So you want to make sure when you're playing this game, you're always looking for the next step. And when I said that you can do this with more than 2 people, I mean that, because you can all look after each other and give each other feedback at the end. Also, if you guys think that you're running into any issues, or maybe you're just kind of stuck on the same step, you can always ask the trainee to leave the area and you guys can kind of talk it out, see what you can do for the next steps.
And if you tuned in yesterday, we talked about what it takes to be a zookeeper. Training is vital. It's becoming more and more of a part of our daily lives. A cool thing that zoos are doing, things like having a polar bear hold out their hands so they can do blood samples in between the paws. So imagine having a big, awake polar bear with those big claws, so comfortable and trusting that you're able to go and take a blood sample to go and check their health and make sure that they're being really, really good, healthy polar bears. Things like that is why training is so important on if you want to be a good zookeeper, you gotta be a trainer. All right. Well, it looks like that's just about to go and wrap us up. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We have a couple minutes. Did you see any last questions that you got? All right, let's ask a question real quick.
Someone wants to know, what does Ozzy eat?
Ozzy is a strict herbivore. That's a pretty big word. That means he only eats plants. So he'll eat different types of hay. We have some grains for him, which are specially designed for giraffes, and they make sure that he gets all those vitamins and minerals. He also eats browse, and that's just leaves on branches. So those are things that he'd naturally go and seek out. He has some trees all the way around his enclosure, so he's able to go and forage for them, get that exercise going, and he'll eat between about 40 to 60 pounds in a day. As he gets bigger, full size, he could actually get up to 80 pounds of food a day. All right, one more question?
Any more? No más? And then
Okay.
one more thing on the training game. If you guys do have any questions, please feel free to ask us in the comments. We'll go back and look. It's a super fun activity, even just for team building for adults. It's a lot of fun. So if you guys have any questions on that, please don't hesitate to ask us. We will go back through the comments and we'll keep an eye on them if you guys do have any questions. And I'm going to turn it up to Kylie to spin a question.
Does Ozzy have a favorite treat?
Yes, yeah, he is definitely picky. Like any 6-year-old, his types of food do change. But Caroline, what was he really digging today?
Well, he was getting carrots for his reinforcement for painting so well, so he was really enjoying carrots. We were also giving him his cookies. They're apple and oats biscuits that you can feed horses, but he was really enjoying those carrots today.
His favorite overall, I have to say though, is the mulberry trees. He loves them. He has acacia trees too, which giraffes naturally eat in the wild. However, his favorite by far is mulberry trees, and he's really excited those leaves are coming in. He can't wait to eat them.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all your support. Again, if you'd like to donate, you'll notice that we do have a couple of donation links all throughout the Facebook page. So scroll down below this video, check them out. You can also just go right to our website, which is lionhabitatranch.org. And there's a donation button right on the top there. Without your support, we really can't do this. So we really, really appreciate any money that you guys are able to give right now. Thank you so much to the locals of Las Vegas who keep mentioning us, who keep going and getting our name out there. We were talking about it. So, and a special shout out to the news stations. We really appreciate this. If you know any kids or families at home that would benefit from this, please feel free to share and get the word out. We're going to be continuing these streaming safaris all throughout there, because if you guys can't come to us, don't worry, we're going to bring it to you. So thank you so, so much. We are definitely going to be doing another streaming safari on Wednesdays and Fridays. We're going to try and have bonus content as often as possible though, so keep checking our Facebook page for the most up-to-date minute updates. We appreciate everything, and I think that about covers it. Before we go, hey Ozzy, I think you're finished. Hey Megan, do you want to finish him up there? We ask him for a bow? All right. Now that we have a distracted giraffe.
Now that we have a distracted giraffe.
Can you take a bow?
He's like,
We'll see.
no.
Hang on, guys. Maybe it's because we didn't thank him enough. Want to give him a big round of applause?
Yeah, let's give him a round of applause.
Yay!
Good boy.
All right.
He's like, no.
He's like, oh, I'm so confused.
He's like, no.
And this is what it's like training animals, guys. Take a bow. It's on their schedule.
He's like, well, maybe. Yay!
Good job, Oz.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Bye, guys.
Bye.